Tori and Catherine Gamble, Dr. Catherine Gamble. We are so pleased to share with you our insights about the brand new Giving USA report that just was hot off the presses this morning.
It's
Catherine?
ex Yeah, it's very exciting. I think, drum roll, please, is that, you know, in 2023, people gave away $557.166 billion in the United States alone. I mean, that's a huge amount of money, Gail. Think about that for a
It
minute.
really is. And we were just chatting before we went live that Americans are so generous.
Mhm.
And philanthropy is practiced in the US and Canada differently than it is the rest of around the world, because it's
Mhm.
sort of the fundamental part of a democratic society, right, Catherine?
I think so. I really do believe that. And I do think it says, we see how we saw a record amount of philanthropy in the pandemic when people were, we had many clients during that time who were, say, food banks or arts and culture, all the different sectors pretty much represented in our client base, and we were seeing them all people just really stepping up. For the in the case of a food bank or something, people really wanted to help people have access to food during that period of time as a lot of suffering was going on. And when we saw but on the flip side, our arts and culture organizations who were reeling from earned income having dried up during in that early period, donors were stepping up to save their favorite community arts organizations. So
Mhm.
that those feelings of goodwill, which is really the what philanthropy is, are very much alive today, and they show up in these results.
Right. And I want to give everybody an overview of the trend in giving over the past few years. Giving was going up, and then we had the pandemic. 2020 was so-so, but 2021 giving skyrocketed. And then the 2 years at 2022 and 2023, giving has declined. Of course, it's declined from the skyrocketing level of the pandemic. And so we say giving is up a little bit or down a little bit. Remember that we are still ahead of where we were before the pandemic. And I think that's really relevant. Overall, everybody, compared to the previous year of 2022, giving is up what, 1.9%, which is not a lot yet. When you take inflation, account for inflation, giving is now down, what,
Mhm.
2.1%. So
Mhm.
so if somebody asks you, how are we doing in fundraising this year, last year, 2023, you can say, well, we were up a little bit, but with inflation, we were down a little bit. But there's still many other takeaways within this report that I think are going to inform your fundraising strategies for the rest of this year and next year, right,
Mhm.
Catherine?
Right, exactly. And I think the other thing too, because we do, you know, it's, I think it's fair to say we kind of live in somewhat tumultuous times. Although I think all of us would like to retire that phrase, basically, Gail.
I'm tired of
I would
hopeless.
like to live in like peaceful, smooth times. But anyway, but still, at the same time, we really saw, as Gail was just saying, even when you adjust for inflation, the giving was still really strong. And should be a big takeaway, both in current dollars and adjusted for inflation. Givings was really strong. And, that was, 2023 was marked by strong GDP, gross domestic product. It's really important, strong stock market and market returns. We did see increases in personal disposable income across, not everyone, obviously, I think it's fair to say, but across largely, we saw it overall up. So that leads to greater opportunity for generosity within our world and
Yes.
in our country. Mhm.
So let me repeat what Catherine's talking about. The stock market has skyrocketed. It's a good word to use. And at one point, I saw a number that it was up 24% this year. Is that
Mhm.
correct? Is that really correct? Or was it last year? Anyway, stock market is way, way up. And all the studies show that giving follows the stock market, quite frankly, everybody. So I
Mhm.
think you should be optimistic about this year. Be careful about knowing where the money's coming from to meet your goals. But you need to go out there and love on your donors, to use a Southern phrase, and be optimistic and be positive. That's one of the things we talk a lot about, is that you've got to think that the glass is half full. So just know that you have donors out there with disposable wealth, particularly appreciated stock. And I was doing, Catherine, I was doing a workshop in Wilmington, North Carolina,
Mhm.
and I was talking about the value of appreciated stock, appreciated
Mhm.
securities, stock that has increased in value. And the guy in the front row finally raised his hand and he said, "Would you please explain what appreciated stock is?" And so not everybody understands that, but your donors probably do
Mhm.
if they
Mhm.
have a stock portfolio. So that is one of your action items, I think, going forward this year is to be alert for giving opportunities to gifts of stock.
Mhm. Mhm. I think it might be important here to talk about, since you're, bringing up in terms in individuals, there's individuals who will give away stock or other appreciated assets from their portfolios, but giving across all sources was up. And now there's some different direction when they're adjusted for inflation. But let's just go with the up or down straight out numbers. They're up. And that means individuals, foundations, bequest, corporations, that giving is up from each one of the sources this year, especially bequest scale.
Yes, and yet again, here's another takeaway. It's time for you to really sharpen up your legacy giving promotion and your legacy giving program because the wealth transfer is in fact happening from boomer and silent generation parents to their next generation. And there's a lot of data, a lot of talk out there about the great trillions of wealth transfer, and we are in the process of it. And in my church, my local church, I'm of course on the stewardship committee. We've had 24 deaths just this year. And many of those lovely individuals who have passed on made bequests to our church because we've been working hard on our legacy giving circle, right, Cassie? I mean,
Right.
Kathy,
Yeah. No, that's our other member of our company.
that's
Yes, it is. I mean, the whole arena of plan giving, and I'll just say really quickly, it does not have to be complex. You
no,
just a bequest, and here this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about complex gifts. We're talking about bequests, which is the vast majority of all estate gifts are bequest. So you can do a lot by just, have you included us in your will? Or have you included us in your estate plans as an opening question with any
right.
donor?
And
And maybe, go ahead.
I also want to point out that the older generation has the wealth. And older Americans are making increasingly generous gifts. These baby boomers, those who are aged between 60 and 78 years old, win the top spot for the wealthiest generation in the US in aggregate. Their total wealth, I've got some numbers right here on the screen, is 78.55 trillion in the
Mm-hmm.
age group from 60 to 78 years old. And so these people are in their prime giving years. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you want to worry about the future donors coming in and find new donors. But on the other hand, if you want to make your fundraising goals, go to the people with the wealth capacity and who are at their prime giving years.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say even if you're when you're in a campaign or something, think about or consider, should you have a plan giving component added to your campaign? Because this could be really an important, a really great opportunity while you're having, generating lots of excitement about your organization or whatever your project, whatever your campaign is raising money for, to even begin to open the door to have those conversations. Have you considered including us in your estate plan?
And
Very
so
easy to do.
we recommend make this the summer of planned giving. And give a concentrated focus on making sure that your plan giving materials are updated. That's number one. Weave them into all of your donor communications and identify your most loyal donors who are most likely to be interested in making a plan gift. And then steward and celebrate those who have already committed to a plan gift in their will. So there's some actions you can take. Like Catherine says, it doesn't have to be complicated, but I would consider this to be an extremely high priority.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So, Gail, do you want to talk a little bit about? We talked now just a little bit about where the money's coming from, which
Ooh.
is really important. But you want to talk a minute about where the money is going by subsectors.
I think it's
Um,
so interesting to see where the money is going or where it went last year in
mhm,
terms of because the increases were dramatic for some nonprofit sectors and they were not dramatic for other parts of nonprofit sectors.
mhm, mhm. Very true. So we see here that we are seeing. Well, I lost my little chart. looking for my
Yeah, I've got my chart
substitutes
right
there.
here.
Okay, I'm looking for my chart. There we go. So we see that overall there are some increases in where or where they're going, but they was, interestingly enough, Gail, was really high for arts and culture.
Hmm.
11% increase. We also saw a really high increase to foundations, 15.4% up from the previous year. So these are very important, I think, kind of opportunities for one, arts and culture. That's really great that that's up because sometimes that's not the case. But I think maybe it might be good to talk a minute, Gail, just about the increases to foundations and what is
Yeah.
going on there a little
Yes.
bit.
When people make a gift to their own donor advised funds, or
Mhm.
when they make a gift to their own private foundation, that is considered giving to foundations. So just know that you have donors who have set aside money for philanthropic adventures. And so one of the takeaways that I hope you will run away with from this talk today is that be on the alert for gifts that come from DAFs or donor advised funds or IRA rollovers, anything like that. Be on the alert because that means that this donor has money set aside for philanthropy. And so I would have a great big red flag for your gift processing team to identify major gift prospects, major donor prospects. I do think, Catherine, what do you think? I believe that the administrative and gift processing offices of a lot of nonprofits are not set up to adequately pounce, as we would recommend, pounce when you see a DAF gift. What do you think?
I 100% agree. I think this is something that we really need to, as organizations, become a bit more savvy. And this is not difficult. It's not difficult to kind of be looking for changes in giving behavior. And this also speaks to it's really important to know how your donors give. Gail was talking a minute ago about individuals and making appreciated asset gifts, which are really important, but also, donors that are giving from donor advised funds or giving from our family foundations. And I might add that, of course, in looking at this about foundations being the recipients of giving, keep in mind foundation, giving to a donor to set up a donor advised fund or giving to a foundation is a charitable act of itself. I think sometimes we don't think about that. We don't think about it being a charitable act until it actually comes to charity. But but it's a charitable gift because people receive a tax deduction or may be eligible for a tax deduction by setting that up. Typically, so this is how this is looked at from Giving USA in our research. So I think it's really important to note that also driving some of this, especially the increase of gifts to foundations,
Mhm.
is also from the significant wealth that's held by a smaller number of individuals. So these mega gifts have also been driving some of these as families or people are setting up foundations to manage and then disperse their wealth and however they wish to, but it's coming from the foundation itself.
So I would suggest that this is a takeaway. Be on the alert for mega gift opportunities and make sure that you have a big idea about what your organization can be and do in the world. And then see if you don't have a donor who might be really interested in hearing that. You'd be surprised because mega gifts are happening today more so than ever. And so again, this is one of the key takeaways we want to give you. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, Catherine, is regular foundations like philanthropic foundations, like
Mm-hmm.
the Ford
Mm-hmm.
Foundation, the Z. Smith Williams Foundation, the Duke
Mm-hmm.
Endowment. These are
Right.
all foundations here in North Carolina that give in North Carolina and all over the country. We have clients, our capital campaigns all over the country are doing quite well with gifts from foundations.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Foundation assets have gone way, way up with the stock market, and foundations usually give a 3-year rolling average of their returns, and they give it out. I wouldn't say all of them use that rule, but many do, and so we can expect that gifts from foundations will be higher and that they have more money to give. So if you are, I would be very close to my local foundations and whatever national foundations have ever funded you before, reconnect with them and let them know what's happening. What do you think, Catherine?
I 100% agree. I mean, even keep in mind, this is also applicable to those family foundations. And we have a client in Tennessee that has had great success with family foundations and have taken very much, Gail, that kind of savvy viewpoint that you just articulated of thinking about. They've even gone as far as look at the foundation's 990s and looking how many times they see gifts over a period of time to similar organizations as theirs. I mean, it's very interesting. That's very simple research anybody can do,
Right.
basically. So yes, don't, take a minute to think strategically. This is the real value of the Giving USA information to every fundraiser out there. It helps you. We've used it in helping boards understand context for fundraising. You can just do a few key takeaways about where money comes from. Everybody thinks it all comes from corporations, and it
And it
doesn't. It
does
comes
not, or events. My goodness.
That's my favorite one. Or events. Yeah. Well, that might be under individual, but anyway, they, these are some oftentimes, and I think it helps elevate. I really do believe this is a key benefit of one of the many key benefits of understanding and spending some time as Gail and I are doing, and I'm sure other sources of information, or that this information unfolds over the coming month or so, that to be able to really kind of dig into it, read it well. If you don't understand, you certainly can reach out. I'm happy to explain more detail. Or join us for our webinar on July 1st, where we will unpack this in more detail than today. Being able to give your board some context, your leadership and your organization some context about fundraising, that it's well researched. There's lots of data available that tells us patterns that are very important, like we're talking about today: increases in planned giving, action item. Maybe think about planned giving
Oh,
more
yes.
than you've been.
Oh, yes.
This is just something that's really valuable for you and your daily work, to take time to read through this, unpack it a little bit, listen to people like Gail and myself and others who are sharing this valuable information with you.
And remember, we're also having a full webinar on Giving USA results July 1st, Tuesday, is it Tuesday, July 1st, Tuesday or Monday? It's July 1st.
I can
Yeah.
struggling to make it through today. No, just kidding. Just
Tuesday, July 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll send out a note about our webinar. And we haven't had a lot of time to dissect the report back, but for our webinar, we will have many more thoughts to share and takeaways, so you can have some good guidance about where to focus your fundraising in 2024 and 2025. Thanks so much, Catherine. Thanks everybody for joining us and listening. We'd love to hear a comment. We're happy to respond to comments, and we look forward to seeing you at our webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.